Now in chapter 6, we have warnings against folly, against foolishness. And what's interesting is some of the things that are chosen to be illustrations of what are foolish. My son, if you have put up security for your neighbor, if you have shaken hands in pledge for a stranger, if you have been trapped by what you said, ensnared by the words of your mouth, the idea there is wisdom in your relationships with your neighbors and with money. You don't put up security for your neighbor. You don't make the pledge that you're going to pay a debt for somebody who can't pay it back. And if you go into a pledge or into a relationship with a stranger and you've shaken hands with them on that, you've simply set yourself up to be trapped and to be in a position where you have no way out. And then the other is not sleeping, not being lazy. This was one of the major themes that we're going to discover is admonitions against laziness. Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food in harvest. How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When you get up from your sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man. All right, and here we continue with that. And here is a literary device that is used quite often. It says, there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. And so the idea here is, let me share with you a list of things that are considered to be foolish. And it's a typical device. Here are 6 things the Lord has, 7 that are, and so the idea is don't get caught up in whether it's 6 or 7 or whatever it is. It's just, I want to give you a list. All right. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness that pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. These are all examples of foolishness in God's eyes. Haughty eyes, arrogance. Remember, that was one of the themes that we're going to see in here is humility. And then a lying tongue, that goes with false witnesses, hands that shed innocent blood. So that list just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. For the sake of time, I am skipping this slide, but I encourage you to read the full scriptures. All right, at chapter 7, here again is a warning against adultery. I'm not going to go into that, but you can read. All right, let's take another moment and ponder these questions. We adults are apt to overwork. How do you define rest versus laziness? And on the list of 7 things that God detests, which one or which ones do you struggle with the most? Take a moment and discuss those, and then you can pick back up. That and I'll just leave that for your reading. But again, my son, pay attention to what I'm telling you. All right, so here again is wisdom's call. Does not wisdom call out? Does not understanding raise her voice? At the highest point along the way where the paths meet, she takes her stand. Again, this is not something that is hidden away. You who are simple, gain prudence. You who are foolish, set your hearts on it. Listen, for I have trustworthy things to say. To the discerning, all of them are right. They are upright to those who have found knowledge. In other words, these instructions are right and good. And part of gaining wisdom is to recognize that these things are good and we need to pay attention to them. All right. So here is part of wisdom's call. Wisdom is actually speaking now. Not only is wisdom personified as a person, but now wisdom speaks. I, wisdom, dwell together with prudence. I possess knowledge and discretion. To fear the Lord is to hate evil. I hate pride and arrogance, evil behavior and perverse speech. Counsel and sound judgment are mine. I have insight. I have power. There's really some interesting language there of insight and power. So that's her call. Now, here is a part of the passage there that is part of wisdom's call, where wisdom is not just personified, but now speaks. And I want to share this particular passage with you because it is a source of some controversy for folks in biblical interpretation. The Lord brought me forth as the first of his works, before his deeds of old. I was formed long ages ago, at the very beginning when the world came to be. When there were no watery depths, I was given birth, when there was no springs of overflowing with water. Before the mountains were settled in place, before the hills I was given birth, before he made the world or its fields or any of the dust of the earth. I was there when he set the heavens in place, and when he marked out the horizon on the face of the deep, when he established the clouds above and fixed securely the fountains of the deep, when he gave the sea its boundaries so the waters would not overstep his command, and when he marked out the foundations of the earth. Then I was constantly at his side. I was filled with delight day after day, rejoicing always in his presence, rejoicing in his whole world and delighting in mankind. Now, some biblical interpreters believe that this is Jesus speaking, and Jesus is part of the Trinity and is coexistent with God the Father and the Holy Spirit for all eternity, and so they believe that Jesus is the wisdom here that is referred to. And they take it a step further for those who were into feminist theology, is that Sophia is the Greek word for wisdom, and that this is Sophia speaking. And so for feminists, they claim that Jesus is Sophia, the wisdom of God. The vast majority of the Christian faith and of scholarship says, look, this is a literary device. That's all this is. That we personify things so that we can understand it. And all this is saying is that, wisdom comes from God. And so wisdom is with God because God is wise. This is not necessarily a precursing or a precursor or a pre-call of Jesus being present. Okay. This is simply just the idea that wisdom has been around since there's been God, because the source of wisdom is God. Now, that's my interpretation and the vast majority of the Christian faith. So if you hear, especially of this chapter, any conversation about the idea of Sophia worship or the feminist Jesus in this is where this comes from, is from this particular chapter. I'm skipping this slide, and please continue to the next one. All right, I'm going to turn my video off just for a minute so I can see what we're reading here. Whoever corrects a mocker invites insults. Whoever rebukes the wicked incurs abuse. Do not rebuke mockers, or they will hate you. Rebuke the wise, and they will love you. Instruct the wise, and they will be wiser still. Teach the righteous, and they will add to their learning. And so the idea here is this conflict between wisdom and folly. And one of the things that the wise need to understand is the more you try to correct those who are mocking or those who are simple or those who are not wise, the more you get negative feedback. You seek wisdom, but don't try to give wisdom to other people unless they're in a place where they're willing and able to listen and to add to that. And again, we get I love this, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. For through wisdom your days will be many, and years will be added to your life. If you are wise, your wisdom will reward you. If you are a mocker, you alone will suffer. And then here are just a few little examples. Folly now is personified as a woman. not saying that an unruly woman is folly. It's folly is like an unruly woman. She is simple and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house on a seat at the highest point in the city, calling out to those who pass by, who go straight on their way. Let all those who are simple come to my house. To those who have no sense, she says, stolen water is sweet, food eaten in secret is delicious. But little do they know that the dead are there, and that her guests are deep in the realm of the dead. And the idea here is those who are foolish, who choose to not engage in seeking wisdom, they're going to end up dead. They're going to end up not in a good place. All right, so as we close session 3, here are some questions for us to ponder. If you, as a parent, were writing Proverbs today, what things would you commend or warn against that are different from, let's say, Solomon's day? Is the main purpose of Proverbs still relevant for today's world? And the ancient world did not seem to have a problem with corporal punishment. In fact, it seems to be encouraged as an act of wisdom. Why is that discouraged in the modern world today? And what examples of wisdom and folly do we see in today's world? So ponder these questions, and that ends this session 3, and we will pick back up in session 4. Thank you.